This is WBAI New York, where the time is now 9 o'clock. Music of Igor Stravinsky for you to start us off. Recorded in 1933, that was the Danse Russe, the Russian dance from Petrushka. It was arranged by the violinist in cahoots with the composer, Igor Stravinsky, who was also the pianist. So there we have the Danse Russe from Petrushka in an arrangement by Samuel Dushkin and Igor Stravinsky, performed by violinist Samuel Dushkin and Igor Stravinsky. And you can't get more authentical than that. Let's travel back a bit together to 1972, the second year that I was at WBAI. It's a fan card addressed to WBAI 359 East 62nd Street, New York, New York 10021. It says, "Attention J. Irsay" on the lower left on the address side. And to the right of "Attention J. Irsay" is a sleeve with a hand sticking out from the sleeve saying, "Take heed." In other words, don't just put it in the general mailbox, but get it to Irsay. And it's from Flushing, New York, August 5th, 1972. Dear James, could you play these on Past Masters, please? And when I say please, it's underlined with about 8 double lines that seem to have been written in a spasm of earnest desirability, earnest derision. Please. 1. Chopin Revolutionary Etude, performed by Friedheim. 2. Chopin Nocturnes, parentheses, Godowsky. 3. Widor, Toccata, parentheses, Widor. 4. Stravinsky, Russian Dance from Petrushka, Stravinsky / Dushkin with a question mark. And now we can say that that question from 1972 has been answered. Dushkin? Yes, Dushkin. 5. Anything by de Pachmann or Godowsky. And then the most important, number 6, written in letters that are about 3 times larger than the previous letters, that are all in capital letters, written all in caps. Each word is underlined with that spasmodic triple underlining. And it says, especially Ignaz Friedman. And then there on the left, lower left side, there's another sleeve with a hand pointing out. And it's saying, with a note in parentheses next to that sleeve that says, clean fingernails even. And then he writes thanks, and then writes his name, and the first letter of his name he makes into kind of a Art Nouveau, almost, well actually it's more like Miro crossed with Picasso portrait, with 2 eyes, a mouth, and that's what he uses for the letter A. And the name is Allan Evans. Before I explain to you who Allan Evans is, I have a question to ask. How many different ways must the world change for the worse during only a single season? How many ways must our world change during the course of a single spring? Because I must tell you that my faithful friend, my brilliant colleague, who was personally warm, supportive, he could be bitingly critical, as those who know him, know, but grew excited at every new discovery. And his life was a continuing, non-stop series of discoveries. Allan Evans was a person who proved in real life that inner space is just as vast as outer space. From that day in 1972, Allan and I remained friends. Sometimes I saw more of him, sometimes less of him, but we always remained loyal to each other and consistent in our feelings. I think of Allan, and I think of a person that I never thought of as a participant with me in a love relationship. But as I look upon our relationship this evening, surely that's what it was. My most dear friend, Allan Evans, passed away this afternoon at the age of 64. A chunk has been removed from me, and it may not have been the wisest idea to do this program so quickly, so soon after Allan died. His death was not completely unexpected, but you know how these things go. I mean, he was sick for a long time. and not only sick with one thing, but sick with lots of things. But you know how it is. There's a big difference from nervously anticipating something to experiencing what you were anticipating. Allan was a deep comrade, a personal comrade, and an artistic comrade. Whenever either Allan or myself made a personal discovery, a personally significant discovery, we shared it with each other. I would get things just unadvertised. He would send me something. He would say, oh, here's a CD by the Clara Haskell of organists, a woman organist, whose name I forget at the moment, and she really plays beautifully, but the Clara Haskell of organists, that's a great one. He sent me files of Frescobaldi, who he discovered for himself. Files of this musician, that musician, and not only musicians. You know, it's not easy to talk about Allan Evans because, you know, Jews talk about the ocean of Talmud, how the Talmud is so vast, has so many tractates and so many commentaries on commentaries. They call them super commentaries. The Talmud itself is an ocean. Allan is an ocean. The Allan Sea, we could say. Every discovery led to another discovery. Allan wasn't content to rest with what he discovered. He had to see what made it tick. Where did it come from? What did it lead to? Allan was a multidimensional person. Our first discovery together was concerning the person whose name is written in capital letters on number 6, and has always had a special meaning for me because of its association with Allan. Because that's how Allan discovered historical classical pianism. That's how Allan discovered classical music, through WBAI on my program called Past Masters. Before that, his world was Reverend Gary Davis, who he knew and with whom he took guitar lessons and was a mentor to him. And then all of a sudden he heard Ignaz Friedman, because I discovered a 78 recording on 78. This is before CDs. In a thrift shop, lying on the floor, no less. And it said, an unknown pianist playing the the A-flat Polonaise of Chopin. And I picked it up and brought it home, brought it to the station, played it, aired it, and raved about it. And Allan had the same reaction. And this is why he said, especially Ignaz Friedman in this with huge letters, because, those are the days when you couldn't just go on the computer and dial up YouTube and find everything that you can find on Ignaz Friedman. The world was a different place. There were sham scholars in the old days. They were real scholars in the old days, because that's what I meant to say, because they had to work for their knowledge. They couldn't just press a key and have everything appear before them on a screen. You couldn't find out a fact or an aspect without knowing the whole thing, because there were no databases. There were no... Allan did the research. He was enthusiastic. He was an ocean. Not only that, but Allan remembered everything. And again, taking advantage of the Jewish literature and tradition, in the Pirkei Avot, the chapters of the Fathers, The Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus is described like this. Now, I think of Allan when I read this. Eliezer ben Hyrcanus is a plastered cistern that loses not a drop. Now, Allan's not the only plastered cistern I know. In fact, most of the people I know who know Allan are plastered cisterns. That's something that's how these people are. I don't count myself among those people, by the way, not by a long shot. But Allan and the core group of all our friends, they're plastered cisterns. And Allan, to me, is the chief cistern. He's the cistern that feeds the others, you might say. The reason that Allan and myself were astonished at the playing of Ignaz Friedman in his performance of the Polonaise in A-flat is that it is way, way, way over the top. In fact, some people hate it. I love it. Allan loved it. That's the difference. And it's not that that's the kind of playing that he loved, because he loves so many kinds of playing, as do I, as do our circle of friends. But this began it all as far as Allan and I are concerned. And you'll see what I mean. This is a discovery. Maybe it'll be a discovery for you. We have Ignaz Friedman, who was born in Podgórze, in a part of Krakow in Poland. We have his recording. Is it 1933? Could be. We have now the Chopin Polonaise in A-flat, performed by Ignaz Friedman. Take it away. Music of Frédéric Chopin, his famous Opus 53 A-flat Polonaise, performed by the late great Ignaz Friedman. We're paying tribute to my dear friend Allan Evans, who passed away this afternoon after a long struggle with ill health that covered many years, but intensified in this past year. The result of that 1972 broadcast and Allan's introduction to the playing of Ignaz Friedman covered a space all the way up. Well, of course it continues, but it reached a significant climax in 2009 when Allan wrote and had published in that year a magisterial biography of Ignaz Friedman, the only one there is. A wonderful book that's beautifully researched, deeply researched. I had the pleasure of participating with him in a small way with that kind of copy editing. I would never take even partial credit, even an infinitesimal credit for the miracle that Allan accomplished with that book and all of the research involved and the results. Not to mention discovering at the same time the playing of Ignaz Tigerman, who was a Friedman student and also was a great piano. Well, I don't know if he was an actual student, but he was a colleague of Friedman. The book is wonderful. And I've broadcast Ignaz Tigerman as well, and there's some great stuff. You're listening to Evening Irsay. We're celebrating in a small way now the life of Allan Evans. Allan is responsible for foisting upon an unsuspecting world so many wonderful CDs and recordings of his loves, his great musical loves. I believe his first work in the field of recordings was with the company Hungaroton. Then he also produced CDs for Pearl. Those of you who know classical CDs and have been into historical performances for some time will know the label Pearl. And then Allan went off on his own and founded a company named Arbiter. It's a telling name because that's Allan. Allan will pass judgment. Allan will tell you what it is you should be listening to. He'll be the final arbiter. I mean, really, it's so Allan, the name of that CD company. And I don't know exactly how many arbiters there are, but he kept flinging them out, one after the other, of just fabulous stuff. And the world has Allan to thank for much that would remain unknown. There's no doubt about it. And Allan's method of research didn't involve spending all his time in libraries. He traveled the world to track down his heroes and families. He went to the families, and spoke with children and grandchildren and relatives, friends of all of his heroes. He wore out lots of shoe leather, did Allan, when he was researching his great discoveries. And when I say his great discoveries, I don't mean that he's the first person in the world to know about these people. I mean that a personal discovery for Allan meant only one thing: that Allan was going to pass it on to the world in a different way, in an intense way, in a deep, profound way. That's what it meant. If Allan was on your trail, you know that you were going to rest well with posterity. We just heard Ignaz Friedman playing that Chopin Polonaise, the famous Polonaise in A flat, opus 53, which is what began our friendship, my friendship with Allan Evans, and that was in 1972. And just to make a point, and to illustrate a point, Allan did not fall in love with that kind of playing per se, because nobody else plays that Polonaise remotely like Ignaz Friedman does. Although, Friedman can do anything he wants. First of all, he grew up in Poland. This is not a salon performance. Friedman played with, you could say, he played with dirty feet. He'd been out back, with the natives dancing. He knew from what and wherefore. And that's a Polonaise. But there are other Poles who took a different approach. And one thing that may surprise people is that on this list that he sent me on his postcard is included specifically the nocturnes, Chopin nocturnes, performed by Leopold Godowsky. Connoisseurs of piano playing know that Godowsky is not known for his demonstrative recordings. He was much happier among friends, in living rooms. A living room piano with cigar smoke in the air was his idea of the setting one should be in to perform at one's best. Not the recording studio. But this list that Allan gave me with Friedheim and the Revolutionary Etude, by the way, did I mention that that Friedheim never recorded the Revolutionary Etude? You see, this is at a beginning stage of Allan's growth. This is like he just popped out of the egg. He just poked his head out into the world of classical, historical piano recordings. And that's how he could say such a thing as he'd love to hear the recording of the Revolutionary Etude recorded by Arthur Friedheim, because now he knows. Now he's found out long ago that Friedheim never recorded. At least he may have recorded it. I don't know. I mean, he recorded I'm having one of many moments here of forgetfulness. Friedheim did record a Gottschalk piece, but it was not released. So maybe he recorded a Revolutionary Etude that wasn't released, and Allan already knew that one. By the way, I wanted to also make another point about this. I know it's a little scattered, but this is kind of the situation is rather sudden. Allan, when he wrote this postcard, was 16 years old. His 64th birthday was just in April, this last 2 months ago. This is a 16-year-old, and you know how it is with 16-year-olds, don't you? Whether it's girls or Godowsky, they're just, their nostrils are flared. They're just wild, in love. It's all about love. And Allan was fervent in his love at the age of 16, as we would expect somebody of Allan's powers to be. And he hadn't yet refined his knowledge. I think today Allan would say, if he were next to me, as he has been so often, because Allan has been my guest on Morning Irsay on this station many times, especially when he just came out with a new CD. Allan would know that the Godowsky Nocturnes are not the ultimate performance of nocturnes, but then again, there's something to recommend them, and I know Allan would understand this. Although I don't believe his Arbiter ever published any recordings of Godowsky. I could be corrected on this because I have not memorized the very large playlist of the Arbiter Company, and that's not only Western classical music. He's done Japanese music. He's done other fringe music, Indian music. He's on his World Series. He published a CD of mine. I produced a CD for Allan back in 2000 or something. I forget the year. Of Moroccan Sufi music. And we were working on another CD of other music I'd recorded. But at any rate, I think Allan would agree. I don't know if we ever had this discussion, but you know, the nocturnes as played by Godowsky are not a nocturne as played by Friedman and many other pianists of that particular ilk. Because Godowsky gives a chaste reading of his nocturnes. But that's something that I find, and I know Allan would agree, refreshing when you're talking about Chopin players who recorded back when, and Godowsky recorded his nocturnes, the Chopin nocturnes, in 1928. You know, there was a lot of wild playing going on in 1928. Not everybody, but Godowsky's playing of the nocturnes are refreshing. I don't think they're stilted at all. They've been accused of that, you know. I'm going to play for you a recording of Allan's favorite nocturne. It's a nocturne that his mother, who played the piano, made a kind of a private recording of this nocturne. It's a little rough around the edges, but boy, Allan's mother had a serious musical spirit. And I say this not to be nice to Allan. He said that to me. You know, he sent me his recording of his mother. I'm not going to play it for you, but he sent me a recording of it and said, "For your ears only." And he sent it to me to hear what I thought of it. And I told him I thought it was really, really great. You know, unpolished, not a professional pianist, but his mother had a real sense of that piece. She loved that piece. And clearly she must have loved other pieces as well. Godowsky gives us a very high-class performance of Allan's favorite nocturne, which is the same nocturne, as I said, that his mother had recorded. And that's Opus 27, number 2 in D-flat, recorded in 1928. It's a beautiful, suave performance that I guess the thing that most people would say is that it lets the music speak for itself, which is an expression that I don't completely understand, because I don't see how it's possible, frankly. Somebody's got to make the music. But let's listen to Leopold Godowsky in 1928 playing a performance of Allan Evans' favorite Chopin nocturne, Opus 27, number 2 in D-flat, and that's what he wanted. That's number 2 on his list on the postcard, Godowsky playing nocturnes. So let's fill that request right now. Giovanni, I'm glad to hear that you did not fall into the announcer trap with that piece. Although Godowsky didn't linger too long to give you a chance to do it, but that's a dangerous piece to conclude.
Thank you.
It goes, yeah, da 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 da.
I was very attentive with this one.
And many an announcer would then go, and we've been listening to it without waiting for the final two words. Boom, boom. You were very intensive. Yeah, so that was good. I didn't even warn you. I was going to say, look out for that ending. It kills announcers.
Nah, I got it.
Okay. Leopold Godowsky. You know what? Forget about what I said about Godowsky being uncomfortable in the recording studio and only really played well for his friends, because that really was a magnificent performance. And what makes it magnificent is that it really does speak for the composer. I'm taking everything back. Beginning at 9 o'clock. It was a gorgeous performance. I was listening really carefully, and I've listened carefully before. Of course, the Nocturne itself is one of the great masterpieces of Chopin. It's one of his most titanic, in a certain sense, nocturnes. It shows Chopin bursting with genius, and it's not a late work particularly. Opus 27. It's not like it's in the Opus 50. It's not like the Polonaise, which is a late work of Chopin, Opus 53. It's getting late, but Opus 27, number 2, middle period for Chopin. But I think that Leopold Godowsky played it gorgeously, and Allan was right to want to hear Godowsky nocturnes. At the age of 16, he knew which direction to go. But still, his list is a list of somebody who is just getting interested, which is charming. Just charming. Anything by de Pachmann, Godowsky, really something. Allan, by the way, had a great and personalized, I think, sense of humor. And when I say personalized, I mean this. For example, we're talking about the great Allan Evans, CD producer, musician, was teacher at Mannes. He gave classes at Mannes for a long time, including classes in jazz history. That's something I was never able to really follow him on, because I'm not a particular jazz aficionado. I know that jazz musicians are real musicians. I know jazz is real music, and I think that the average jazz musician knows a lot more about music theory, for example, than the greatest classical musician. Don't take me literally on all this, but you know what I'm saying. Gave classes in piano history, in piano recording history. He gave the Chopin seminar. I mean, this guy was really something. Really something. And his sense of humor was very personalized and geared towards individuals with whom he was communicating. In my case, it covered all kinds of areas. First of all, he had a thing for the future perfect progressive tense. He always said, "It will have been." I mean, whatever we were talking about, we were describing something that was going to take place or whatever. It will have been, and he would go off. And another thing, you remember that just very recently I gave a program on Evening Irsay. I talked about the mental hospitals I have known, and I talked about a roommate whose name was Ned. And he was an hebephrenic schiz, meaning he made schizophrenic. And I didn't mean to say schiz. I was just in a hurry. He was an hebephrenic schizophrenic, pardon me. And his variety of schizophrenia involved making noises, repeating them over and over. And his noise, Ned's, was, "Come on, come on, come on." So he walked back and forth, in that mental way. And he would always say, "Come on." And I mentioned on the air when I was talking about my mental history, my mentile history, that after being Ned's roommate for 3 weeks, he finally approached me in the day room one day on this ward and stopped in front of me and in a low voice that I'd never heard from him before, said, "What's your name?" And I was so astonished that I couldn't say anything. I just looked up at him and I said, "What?" And he went back into Kamanza. Allan knew this story. And I'm telling you, every single time he got me on the phone or I called him and he answered, every single time he said, "Kamanza." That's the way he established communication with me. From then till today, I mean, essentially, I didn't speak with him today, but I spoke with him last week, and it was Kamanza all the way. What can I say? Allan was also fond of the organ, as am I. And his organ discoveries involved, for example, Frescobaldi, who he discovered, being played in a particular church, on a particular organ, and he sent, I think, not only me, he must have sent this out to his playlist of friends, files of Frescobaldi to let them know what he was excited about at that time. And he was right. Everything Allan sends out is good. He's never sent out something that I would stamp unacceptable and return it. I've never had to return anything to Allan with the stamp of not acceptable. And Allan was also a fan of something that I was a great fan of. And when he knew that I was a fan of something, he would do whatever he could to make sure that I was able to listen to it with the best sound possible. He would what's the word I'm looking for? He would reprocess, let's say. That's not really the word I was looking for, but that says it enough. He would reprocess transfers and improve them in the way that he liked. I will say very frankly that not everybody loved Allan's transfers, because Allan had a thing for bringing out information in the grooves that he thought generally was not heard. And very often, when he applied this, which he called sonic depth technology, he hadn't been saying that on recent CDs, but he did. And a lot of that would involve leaving in a lot of the high frequencies, which translates, of course, the vector for that is surface noise. It would come out as surface noise, and many people couldn't understand why he did that. But I know why he did it. It's because he believes, as I do, that noise is no object. Noise is not a barrier. As long as the music is there, then we're happy. Look at us. We play these things that were made in 1904. What do you expect? I don't care about noise as long as there's something about the music. The music comes through. And Allan perceived that in his way of doing things and making transfers, he was getting more out of the music. He was also getting more surface noise, but that's immaterial, understand? He believed that the music was being communicated more successfully if he applied his own technology. So people often complain about Allan CDs. Well, they're noisy. No, get over it. Listen to the music. Don't listen to the noise. That's what Allan was. That's his idea. I mean, he never expressed it like that. Maybe he would disagree with me, but I doubt it. That's the whole idea. And if he didn't agree with me, one thing about Allan that I'll be eternally grateful to him for is that if he did disagree with something I was saying, he just remained silent. Allan was not the arguing type. He had his own way of putting forward his arguments, as any lover of the painter Renoir knows, because Allan went on a campaign against the Renoir, Auguste Renoir, who he thought couldn't draw, never took anatomy class, never perfected the art of drawing painting human beings, and more. But anyway. The time we're heading up towards 9:53 now. This is Evening Irsay. James Irsay here, celebrating my dear, dear, dear friend. I'd say 1 in a million, but it's less than that. It's there's no million that could be in the same company or even on the same continent as that one, as Allan Evans, as he was to me, and we were so close. And Allan, after much illness and much suffering, I should say, and much pain, I should say, and still he was creating through everything. He was working on CDs and writing. Allan was greater than 1 in a million. Allan passed away this afternoon. And it's a loss for the world. It's not a personal loss for the world. It's a personal loss for his friends, because we know the Allan behind the CDs and the astonishing knowledge that he displayed on his blog and his researches. We know the person, the warm person that was the vehicle of all that knowledge. But they're not, well, time is flying by, and it's a loss that cannot be made up. This sounds trite, but it's true in a very personal way. I guarantee you. This is a catastrophe for me personally, and for so many other people who knew him, for his family, for his wife, for his wonderful son. Who is a theoretical physicist, his son. I can't decide whether Allan did something right or something wrong, that his son is now working on his doctorate in theoretical physics. No, I'm only kidding. Of course he did right, and a great kid too. I call him a kid. He's probably 38 years old. He's not. He's in his 20s, but you know what I mean. Anyway, anywho, as they say, our time is rapidly running out. And again, as I mentioned at the top of this program, Allan is an ocean, and I can't hope to really give a fair accounting of his accomplishments and his personality, his being, in an hour program, especially one that's essentially being improvised completely, as from the beginning until now. But I will be doing more, and you'll excuse me for saying this. Go ahead, fire me if you want to. That on WKCR, I'll be doing a more extensive program on Allan, and we'll be sampling music from his Arbiter CDs, his wide range of Arbiter CDs. That's at WKCR on Tuesday from 9:30 to noon. No, I don't know what's on WBAI then. If you want to listen to WBAI, good. Nobody's going to force you to turn off WBAI. We love WBAI. By the way, aren't we fundraising now? Oh my God, I'm so stupid. I have to tell you, you really, honestly, I feel so bad. You have to give money to WBAI. You'd think I'd know all these numbers by now. Giovanni, give me a quick number. Quick.
Number is 516-620-3602 to donate to WBAI. Again, that number is 516-620-3602.
Thanks, Giovanni. Yeah, 516-620-3602. Do call up and give something to our wonderful station. We love it. You love it. You're listening to it now. That means gotcha. 516-620-3602. I'm going to hand it over to you, Giovanni, in about 20 seconds. I'm just going to say goodbye. I'm not going to... if you would like me to, I could go out on some music, but
we
I don't
could
have
go with
to.
some music. It's fine.
All right, so you can go out on number 5 rather.
Okay.
And until then, James Irsay here. I've been led to speak about Allan Evans, who passed away this afternoon on today's program. I couldn't not do it. It's on my mind constantly. My good friend, my dear friend, Allan Evans. What a loss. Allan was a very connected person. He knows people all around the world, so there's a lot of sorrow going on this planet right now. Okay, I'll be back next week. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening, as they say. James Irsay here. Bye-bye. Be well.